Okay.
Live at 5, even though it's 7. We're gonna have to wind the clock back.
Yeah. What did we say last? Was it the end of the term last year that we said we were going to
heaven at 7.
Heaven at 7, yeah. I'm not sure if it's a bit different, isn't it? We've got a completely different product on show tonight. The Gael Gin. We were just having a look at the product there, checking out the website, having a look, brushing up on our notes. I'm not going to talk too much about it because that's what our guest is for. So we will get him involved very shortly. As always, we'd love to know what's in your glass tonight. Hopefully, it's a Gael Gin. Hopefully, you've got the Blether pack, and you're sampling the malted gin that we have for you tonight. If not, if you haven't got the pack, let us know what you're drinking. We normally talk whiskey, but tonight there's a whiskey twist to this one.
There's indeed, absolutely, yeah.
Nigel on. So are you drinking the Gael
I
tonight?
am indeed, yes. I've got one here. I've got mine with a nice little slice of orange and some blood orange and elderflower tonic water, which is really nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm going neat.
You're going neat, okay.
Yeah.
You go for the full flavour experience?
Yeah, it's got a lovely nose. I'm getting into the habit of drinking gin neat a wee bit more now. Just through drinking whiskey, I suppose. But quite enjoy it. If I'm only having one or two, I tend to have it neat. If I'm having a few more, then I'll maybe mix it a little bit.
Yeah, and ultimately, as you know, that's always what we do when we do a gin tasting. Anyway, is we encourage people to at least sip it neat or try it neat to get the flavour of those botanicals, because these guys are, gin's gone a long way from Gordon's and the likes. These days, the craft element and the flavours and botanicals that are in there are phenomenal. So yeah, absolutely, definitely encourage people.
Yeah, and I think when we do tastings, I think it's important that people do the gin tasting, so they taste the gin rather than a tonic tasting where it's all watered down and they can't actually get the individual flavours. So yeah, so guys out there, try your gin neat. Don't just reach for the garnish and the tonics or the lemonades or whatever you have with it. Make sure you know what it tastes like neat. You won't. You would never buy an £80 bottle of perfume and then stick it in a 2-litre bottle of water to make it last. Don't do it to your gin. There you go. Tip of the day.
Tip of the day.
And I hope you're going to get some more tips from our guest tonight. We've got Nigel, who is away to join us, and really busy talking to us now. So we are delighted that he's taking the time out to come and visit us. So if you want to know more about the Gael Gin and more about Nigel and the company that or the inspiration behind the gin, stick around, because we're just a way to bring him on. Always a moment of truth to make sure that this bit works. And there you are. Good evening, Nigel.
Good evening.
Hi, Nigel. How are you?
I'm all right. It's been a bit hectic day, but I'm glad to be here. Glad I was able to make it virtually on time, and you didn't have to cover for me for too long. So that's great.
I'm going to make one observation, Nigel. You've got far too many books and not enough gin on the shelf behind you.
Well, I've actually, to make sure I got here on time, I've actually stopped at a friend's house so that I.
Oh, really?
Normally, my shelf behind me would have a lot of bottles.
Okay, I'll let you off then. We'll let you off.
Yeah, that's good.
So excellent. So I suppose, normally the Blether isn't about a specific product, because we mostly talk to distillers or brand ambassadors and things, and the idea is to get to know the people behind it, which we will do in a minute with yourselves.
Yeah,
because you're so focused on one product, I think it's important that we have a look at the gin, and we have a look at the brand, the inspiration, and the story that it took to get there. So if you can kind of tell us about the story of gin, of the Gael, what makes it unique, and a little bit about it.
Well, one of the things, as everybody knows, the gin market is now a very crowded market. So when I decided I was, or I came up with the concept of doing a gin, and I have to say at the time, it wasn't the name or the brand name, the Gael, hadn't come into my head. But initially it was to do basically, in brackets, a single malt gin. And in a sense, and by that I mean we actually only use 100% malted barley to make our base spirit. But my background is that I've been in the drinks trade for basically 45 years, so I'm not a youngster. And I knew, given the amount of product out there, we had to be different. And the majority, obviously, of gins, I mean, there are variations, and there are some I wouldn't call the other gin brands competitors, but some others in the market have an element of malted barley in, but there's nobody that was doing 100%.
Right.
So that's what took me. If I was going to enter a crowded market, I had to look for my differences, and therefore malted barley seems to be. I live in Scotland. I am, as you can tell, I am not Scottish, but I have been here a long time. But if we're going to do it, it was my provenance and my product that was a key part to what I was going to do. Mm-hmm. And as I was putting the concept together, I then was thinking of the name that we put to it. And I was very lucky when I first moved to Scotland. I met a musician. So I went and asked him whether we could use one of his, what in Scotland is probably he's better known for, which is as basically a singer-songwriter. And I asked about one particular song, and I was told no twice. So, but then between us, he suddenly said, well, why don't you use the Gael? And I did know the history. Well, I knew part of the history of the Gael. So I went away and Googled it one afternoon, and I'm thinking, he's right. Because if I tell you the person was Dougie MacLean, he's better known in Scotland for Caledonia.
Yeah.
And that to me was going to add to my, if you like, the true provenance of being a Scottish gin. So when that didn't happen, and he presented, and I saw that this was 4 times bigger than Caledonia, I thought, well, he has a point. And then so I registered the trademark, went back and asked him why is this so much bigger than what you're better known for here? And he said, well, you are a stupid Englishman, which I am. But he said because Caledonia appeals to the Scots and Scots that want to come home. But the Gael, although it was written, this is the important part of it, it was actually written for the opening of the Loch Ness Visitor Centre in 1989. In the early 90s, it actually got picked up and was used in a very well-known film. I would say an iconic film, but then again, it's an age thing.
I would agree.
Because it was a Daniel Day-Lewis film called Last of the Mohicans, and obviously that took it to a new thing, and it started obviously taking that bit of music around the world. But actually, that was superseded by a version that the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards did at the closing of the 2 in 2000 every night, and that's twice the size of the film. So it was more logical in a sense to use it as our brand name. So my way of thinking, I had 2 in brackets unique selling points. I was at the time one of 2 100% single malt gins. And also then I had the thing about how the music or the name came about, which gave me another USP at the other end. Because partly, in my view, is all gin producers, we all, including myself, spout out about our botanicals. And in a sense, and we are all slightly different. But in a sense, we're all talking the same thing. So there's not a lot of difference between us all. It's really, how do you make yourself stand out further from that core block? So, as I say, using a malted barley to make our base white spirit was one. And within that, we then also distilled 5 times, which is why, Mike, you can actually taste it, or you quite like tasting it neat, because it makes it quite a lot smoother. It takes out a lot of the, a lot more of the impurities in the alcohol. So it's a a cleaner. It's a cleaner spirit, but it still retains that malty caramelly background, which we start with, which I hopefully both of you are picking up, and anybody else who's actually tasting it tonight.
My first nosing note is toffee, so yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, that's the caramelly sort of bit. And as I say, it is a gin that potentially can be drunk like a dram because of that 5 times distilling. Most spirits, and you can back me up or disagree with me, but most spirits are only distilled normally 2-3 times, unless it's specified on the label. Yeah. And if you drink them neat, you'll get the warm feeling, but you'll also tend to get a burn feeling. With ourselves, you hopefully don't get the burn feeling. I mean, there are still about 10% of drinkers that will, but in the majority, you won't get that same. You'll still get the warm, but you won't get the burn feeling.
It's a phrase I heard not that long ago. A whiskey bib. It is just a warmth here.
Yes.
And I love it. A whiskey bib where you just get the warmth, not hot, not burny, but just that nice kind of glow.
And actually, picking up on that, because you mentioned that it's sort of, we have a sort of whiskey-ish twist. Personally, I don't like to describe it in that way, because obviously whiskey can put off certain parts of your potential customer. But of course, our base spirit is exactly the same base spirit that would go on to make. If you didn't go down the gin route or the vodka route, you would go down. You would then, and you went down the whiskey route, you would actually have a single malt whiskey. So there is that. So many people don't seem to relate the fact that most grain spirits all start as a white spirit, and with whiskey, the color comes from the cask. Yeah. And often people ask us, why has ours got a slight greenish tinge to it? It's not a coloring. It's a natural color. Because our last botanical we actually only macerate in. Right. All the others are distilled in. So when it's the heather is macerated in for 24 hours. Sorry, it's somebody. It disappear. It's macerated in 24 hours. So when you filter that heather out, it leaves that natural colouring, very slight natural colouring in it. It is probably accentuated a bit by the parchment paper that's got the music on the inside of the back label.
Yeah, as I say, because when you look at it, it looks a lot darker.
That is a parchment paper. Yeah. And musicians can actually play that tune. It is the fiddle version that's on the inside of the back label.
Yeah, yeah.
So there we are, and we stuck. Like a lot of people. There've been others that have started since, but we started just before the pandemic or the chaos that's ensued in the world. So we've slowly plodded forward, and we've slowly made strides. And in a sense, the lockdowns in the UK actually helped me focus a little bit on the export markets, and we are now in 3 export markets. I mean, I made a decision. I made a decision before Brexit that I would move some stock or set up a system in Europe. So I actually have a stock system in Europe, and I can supply, and I have supplied since the middle of last year, Denmark, Germany, and France. So, but it's still a toe in the water. But all of that, and the fact that we've managed to keep our head above water within in particular Scotland. I was going to say the UK, but we're basically in Scotland. We have 2 customers in England at the moment. So I've sort of proved to myself that my concept works. It's a slow process. We're never going to set the world on fire overnight. And when I actually started this, I set it as a 7-year plan. It might now be a 9-year plan thanks to the pandemic, but we're getting there.
How is it selling in England? You say you've got a couple of customers. Are they buying into
both of them are in, or one's in London, one's just south of London. They are specialist wine merchants, because my previous life I was a wine merchant. I was actually a wholesaler. I wasn't actually the merchant. But there are 2 customers that I know that are very specialist customers, and that what they're doing is using us as a education tool to a large degree, because they can put it into fine spirit tastings, whether it be whiskey. Normally it's whiskey, but they will put it in to show how there is a sort of bridge between a gin and a whiskey, and trying to encourage a wider audience of whiskey and broaden minds of gin drinkers.
Yeah. You certainly do, as you discussed in the flavour. Yeah, absolutely. It's almost, to me, I describe it in the shop as almost like a Dutch Genever.
Yeah, Geneva. Well, in a sense, we are in a sense we are like the original gin that came to the UK. Because Geneva uses malted barley.
I'd certainly be happy with this as Dutch courage for sure.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
it's lovely, and as you say, it's got a character difference to gins, and I really think it appeals to whiskey drinkers, or even gin drinkers want to get into whiskey, and vice versa. Whiskey drinkers try to get into gin. As you say, it's just that nice bridge.
So sometimes you want to crossover. Sometimes you want a crossover drink, because we get people in the shop who drink whiskey, drink rum, drink gin, but they would quite like to try the other stuff because their partner does or their friends do, and they think, I just don't like the taste of that. It's too much. So if you can give them something, because there's a couple of rums that we've got that are kind of botanical, that are almost whiskey-like, and that's a good one for getting the rum drinker into whiskey, and vice versa, the whiskey drinker into rum. And I think this one really works well in going in either direction for people who want to kind of try something different.
Yeah,
so it's nice.
And I mean, hopefully we've also proved that my concept that we had to achieve high quality has in a sense it's been endorsed by. We won 2 bronzes in the International Wine and Spirit competition, which was important to me. But then we also won 2 stars in the Taste Awards, which are not that it's quite easy to get a 1 star in the Taste Award. It's not so easy to get 2, and it's very difficult to get 3. I think there is only one. I think this year there was only 1 Scottish, or 1 gin actually, I think, that got a 1 star in the Taste Awards. There were two, maybe 2. I think it was 2 Scottish gins that got 2 stars, of which we were 1. And that helps. It obviously helps in distribution to a degree, but it also helps give people confidence that we're actually we're producing to a high quality, and that in a sense our provenance is, I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to ask as well, on the label you've got the wee squiggle at the bottom. Is that anything to do with
what do you think it is?
It looks like waves.
Well, I'm going for the Loch Ness Monster. I think it's
the loch, the waves of the loch.
It's neither.
Okay.
Think of a violin. Think of a violin.
A violin. Oh, is it the string?
It's that little bit at the bottom.
It's grooved out.
And if you turn the bottle round on the back, if you show us the back label. No, show us the back label.
Oh yeah, you've got it here as well. Yeah.
But it's a little bit more pronounced.
Oh yes.
There you go.
It's a side. It's a side of the violin. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a slightly smaller version on the front label.
Yeah. There you go. So you learn something new every day.
Yeah, and it is actually the fiddle version that you can read through the bottle, and it is actually repeated. I think it's 3 times. But fiddle players can actually play it through the bottle. They this is a bit of a joke, but normally as the bottle goes down, not just because it becomes bigger,
you get more of the tune.
The tunes get better
for all sorts of reasons.
We won a trade design award in early 20 for the design of the label, which we did all in house. I mean, it was my business partner Jamie McLean, who is Dougie's son, but he designed the label himself, and he did such a good job that we didn't actually have to get anybody to tidy it up. We just, in conjunction with the printer, we just sent it to the printer, and away it went. So you know, we have within the company we have an artistic side, and Jamie was responsible for that, and he did all the photography and things for our website. So we're very much a very
so is that
type.
Did you say that's Jamie McLean was Dougie McLean's son?
Son, yeah.
Yes, yeah. That's sort of what enables us to have the music on the bottle.
Yeah.
So, are you all musicians then? I mean, what was the connection?
I'm not a musician. I just like music.
Okay. So, did you just happen to bump into Dougie then, or were you friends before? Or?
No. When I first moved to Scotland, there was a pub in Dunkeld that was actually what an Englishman would call a pub, rather than a hotel bar or whatever. Yeah. And it had this thing about traditional music.
Yeah.
So I used to go in there. They made me feel welcome and whatever. And after about 2 years, somehow Dougie suckered me into buying the pub.
Okay.
Which then I turned into one of the larger traditional music and more music venues outside Edinburgh, Glasgow, Inverness.
Yeah.
And then actually I sold that in 2014. So that's how the connection came about and how I met him, and we've managed to stay good friends ever since 2003.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. So, I mean, did you continue? So you continued to promote the kind of the folk music in the pub then?
I did initially I did it for about the first 5 years. We were still traditional stroke folk music, but then we needed to, during the winters, the locals wouldn't come in because they'd heard it so many times that they would tend to go. So we started having more varied music in there.
Okay.
To hold it's basically for your winter months, in particular January, February, when there isn't so much of the tourist or passing trade around. Yeah. I needed to make sure that the locals still used us as their local pub. I mean, in Dunkeld Dunkeld and Burnham, I think when I last counted, there were back in those days, we had about 8 or 9 bars in competition with us. Yeah. Right. So it's how you made yourself. It's how, again, in a sense, it's a similar to earlier. It's how you stand out in brackets, stand out from the crowd.
Yeah.
Much like you do with the gin, you have to stand out.
Yes. Yeah. In a sense, it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah. And are you still heavily involved in the pub?
No, sold.
Sorry.
You sold the pub.
I sold it in 2014, and right. In a sad sort of way, it doesn't seem to do the same amount of music. I mean, they still do music, but not to the same degree. But it was a moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes you can't, even if you try to replicate them, and people say, very occasionally I've been asked when I would go back and redo it. I'm not. I'm too old and grumpy now to be able to do that.
There's something about not going back. I mean, I'm pretty sure Rick Stein wouldn't go back and start nightclubs again. So, I know you move on to your next project or your new thing or whatever it is that you're going to do after that.
Yeah, and obviously I've moved on to this, but in a sense, this is also me going back a bit in time before I actually got involved in the on-trade. So it is about, in a sense, brand building, because I was a buyer for 3 of the multiples, as I said, which taught me a little bit about merchandising. I mean, I started on the shop floor, filling shelves at Sainsbury's in 44 years ago. And then I progressed through the company. I then went to a company that I think up here would have been called Mac Fisheries, but down south we were called International Stores. And then I worked for a Scottish group where I was basically the buying director for beers, wines, and spirits. Was a Scottish group. You would have known that if any of you that are old enough that can remember, there was a group that was traded under the names Presto or Templeton's, Lipton's, Galbraith.
Yeah.
Today that's Morrison's, but I was in there at the start, and we were an interesting company. We turned it around, but we also owned an off-license chain in the northeast of England, northwest of England, but we also owned a whiskey whiskey company, but more of a brokerage, and it was mainly sending whiskey to the States. And I had some involvement with all of that. And of course, I was involved with that company was one of the companies that bid for Distillers when Distillers was an independent company, and our competitor was Guinness, and Guinness won. And with hindsight, it was the better company to win, because I think my parent company would have basically asset stripped Distillers, whereas Diageo or Guinness morphed into Diageo, and has actually put an awful lot of money behind the drinks industry, which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, what was your favourite tipple growing up then? I mean, you said you were a wine wholesaler. Was it wine that you were?
Well, I started with wine, so it was always wine. It has been replaced, obviously, by gin today. But I still drink plenty of wine. But I was very lucky to be trained at a young age of how to taste product. Sainsbury were a very good company to work for back in those days. I don't know about today, because they spent a fortune on us as young people, training us and things. At 19, I was given responsibility for German wine buying. So I was able at 19. I was traveling to Germany along with people, and we were being put out into the field to train. I mean, we had to go and learn from the actual vineyards, the whole process through. So it was a good grounding. I don't think any of the groups do that today.
No, I can't imagine. That sounds fantastic. What an experience!
Yeah,
it was. Yeah, I was in that sense. I was very privileged to experience that.
Yeah. Getting over there, taste some great German wines. Are they like the French, where you get to buy dirt cheap over there, and they keep all the good stuff and sell us the marketable?
I wouldn't say that that's actually true. It is a common perception, but France is, don't forget, like it's rather like us with Scotch whiskey. You're looking for exports. You're looking for things because it helps the overall French economy. Whiskey helps the overall Scottish UK economy. Yeah. So you can't necessarily hold back things that you want to hold on to.
We've got a comment here just come in from Rad Bell. Pleasant drink neat at times. I think more than 50-50 gin and tonic spoils a good drink. I could not agree more. My man after
I agree.
So when we do the tastings, we had a quick chat at the start. I always encourage people to use less tonic than they normally would, because you want.
But maybe also one of the things to drink or try it with, if you're going to have one of the in brackets tonic waters, is to use one of the 2 or 3 Scottish non-quinine tonic waters.
Yeah.
Which in a sense are soda water, but they're called tonic. Because the quinine has a habit of masking quite a lot of your flavors even with the gin that's just purely botanical based. If you use one of the non-quinine ones, it does release more of those flavors.
Yeah.
And if you go to the opposite end of the scale, if somebody has a very sweet tooth and as a long drink, we do go very well with the addition of cream soda.
Oh yeah, my favorite.
Yeah, because cream soda sort of adds to the creaminess, caramelness. Russell said toffee; it adds a bit to that. But have it as a long drink, a lot of ice, and then garnish it like you do with I would actually say grapefruit, because the acidity of the grapefruit balances a bit of the sweetness of that cream soda aspect to it.
I like the sound of that. That's definitely going to be a summer drink.
Yeah.
And as a summer drink, did you say summer?
Yes.
Yeah, it works really well in the summer. I mean, in brackets, in the alcohol trade, we all become a little bit, in brackets, snobbish, that sweet is always the lower end of the quality scale. That's untrue, because it depends on the atmosphere and the climate. You know, I can remember as a young wine buyer being told sweet wine is just rubbish. It's cheap. It's cheap stuff. But actually, in some of these countries, if you take something like Assis Spumante, on the right day, with a nice warm evening and things, and cold, it's a fantastic drink.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so I would never be rude about it. I mean, personally, I would drink it with cream soda on the Gael with cream soda on a hot day. But when it was first mentioned to me, I'd never thought of it. It was a customer that mentioned it to me.
Okay.
So on the way home that night, I went and bought a can of cream soda, and I could see exactly what they were talking about.
Yeah.
I'm
definitely going to try that for sure. Absolutely. You talk about sweet wines. I mean, things like iced wine. You know, the fantastic iced wine you get from Canada. That's a proper quality wine, but it's very sweet. But I mean, you want a nice, good sweet wine for any time, but even on its own. But with a dessert, it is sublime.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I can remember. Most people probably have never tried it, but you can get white port.
Yes.
Which tends to be which it doesn't have the same sweetness, but it does have a bit of sweetness, and that on a very, very nice hot afternoon.
Yeah, chill.
You probably start drinking too early, but so we shouldn't promote that too much. Well, perhaps we should.
It's a day off, it's a weekend. Yeah, as long as you're not driving or working, you'll be all right.
Yeah, true. You have to enjoy life, and that's why it's fun to. I'm very lucky that I taste. If I see a new gin, I'll normally buy it and taste it. Just to keep you've got to have an open mind to trying things new.
Of course, absolutely.
Definitely. I mean, I never drank gin before we opened the shop, and even to this day we kind of have a look back at my original business plan, and gin wasn't mentioned. We spoke about focusing on whiskey and then other premium products such as vodka and rum. They didn't even mention it. So that shows how good my foresight is. And but now I love it. I think the Botanist was probably the first gin that really caught my attention. I thought, actually, that's really nice. It's not good at all. It's not that. A lot of people kind of slag Gordon's off, but it's done a sterling job for 200 years.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
There's a brand leader, so there's certainly the market for it. But moving from that to Botanist, to realizing that there's more to gin than juniper, really is what.
Yes, I mean, and that's what I mean. You're right, and so many of the gins are very much juniper led. So the juniper comes through very early on when you start drinking. Whereas I would say within ours, the juniper you will only pick up towards the back taste, so towards the end of your taste process. We're not heavily juniper.
I'm amazed at how much of that barley note comes through after 5 distillations. You've managed to keep that. And is that down to the percentage that you're distilling to?
Well, that actually I can't. That part I actually can't answer because I'm actually not the distiller. But I know it's one of the key things that was key, that we had to keep that creamy caramelly as much as we could without losing it. And that is a good question. I will have to now go away and actually ask that question so I can answer it next time I'm asked.
Because I think if you must be distilling up to a certain temperature. Because I think over 93.5%, maybe 94%, you become neutral.
96. We go to 96.
You got 96.
Right.
Okay. So you are going quite high then. I would have thought you might have.
Yeah, we are.
So you've done incredibly well to keep that temperature, that creaminess and that flavour. Yeah.
And I think from memory, I think we are 6 or 7 distillation plates.
Right. Okay. That's interesting then. So I'd be interested to find out just how you keep that creaminess and that malty flavour, because it's certainly there, certainly prominent. Yeah. And you don't need
I will ask the question. I will ask the question, and next time we meet up, I'll be able to give you the answer.
Because you don't go near a cask or anything. There's nothing.
No, it goes nowhere near cask.
It's all just. Yeah,
No,
that's interesting.
There's none of that element in it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, you know, the reason why we haven't even tried to launch flavored ones or anything, my belief is that if you do that, all you're to a degree doing is splitting your business.
Yeah.
So it's better for us to focus on doing what we do well, and even if it takes a bit longer, it's just to keep believe in what you've done, and just make sure that you're consistent and continue to build with it. Don't keep changing what you're doing.
I think if you start to flavor this spirit, it would be hard to find a flavor that might as well.
The complements it. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Otherwise, you might have to create a whole new base spirit to flavor with.
Yeah, and then that starts destroying your story.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Just to focus on this because it's lovely.
I mean, if you're going to add flavour to it, I think you're right. It's rather than actually change what you buy in the bottle, it's discovering different ways of serving it, of pouring it. You know, like your long ice cream soda drink, or just drinking it neat, or you know, maybe one of these ones you pop in the freezer so it's proper cold and have almost like a dessert wine.
No, I think you're right, Russell. I think you're probably right.
Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned earlier on that you're not from these parts, but you're clearly part of these parts now. But so where were you sort of born and brought up? Where are you from?
Well, that's a good question. I suppose I spent most. I spoke. Well, my father was in the forces so I moved around the world as a youngster. But I suppose most of my grown-up adult life was basically in the south of England. It was, and to a degree the southeast. So, you know, people say, oh, well, actually, down there, over 50% of our true friends were Scottish. And when we announced we were coming to Scotland, all those Scottish friends said, "You'll be back within 2 years. You'll hate
it." Your Scottish friend said that.
Yeah, our Scottish friend said that. 22 years on, we're still here, and I suppose that's why it's maybe one of the more hidden things that I didn't realize that was in the back of my head was if I could have gone back into the wine industry, but I'm not promoting anything local particularly.
Yeah.
And you know, I also have this thing that I chose to live in Scotland, therefore if we can do something that is promote something that has a provenance of being truly Scottish, that's what we should be doing, irrespective of whether we're part of the UK or not part of the UK. You know, we should be promoting what Scotland is good at. And you know, Scotland is well known for whiskey. Obviously, it's not so well known that it's a white spirit producer because it produces white spirit for the whiskey.
Yeah.
So in a sense, at the back of my head, there's a bit of an educational thing. But it is obviously about building a gin brand, hopefully. But there are all these little bits that fit in and come and go from time to time on it. And it's how do you actually bring them all in and use them? It's quite, in that sense, quite complicated.
Yeah. And would whiskey be a route that you would go down? Would you like to get involved or produce it?
I don't know whether I don't know whether I've got the time to do that. And when I say the time, don't forget it's a minimum 3 years.
Yeah,
I'll be pushing 70 by then. I would like to think the answer would be yes, but you then say if this continues to go the way that it looks as though it is, then I hope the people that continue with the company, yes, that is a route that would hopefully they go.
Well, Walker's in his mid-70s and he's still going strong.
Yeah.
So you've plenty time.
Yeah, but we're all different. We're all different, and we all need to have our own little.
I totally agree with Nigel. I think there's a completely different attitude to me. You know, planting trees and building an estate for the future. I get that. I get that you would do that. And people will benefit from that you want. I don't think I'd want to make whiskey that I don't get to taste.
Yeah.
The benefit of other people, bugger that.
Yes,
But in a
nice.
sense, but in a sense, it's, yeah, I'll take that will go in my box with me. But it's also how you evolve as a company. So the first thing is to get us to the stage where we're established as a gin brand.
Mm-hmm.
Once that is there, then you can start to play around. Not trying to do too many things at once. You take, to a degree, you're potentially taking your eye off the ball.
Yeah,
sure.
And I just have this determination that I am going to take this to the gin to the next stage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what is that next stage? What's the plans?
More internet, make more export effectively.
In the market, yeah.
Yeah. I see for us export markets as a key.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I certainly think you've got the brand there and the spirit to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason I asked about the whiskey was I think the look of it and the name and the story lends itself perfectly. That could go global.
Yes, it could. Yeah,
we can do that with the gin anyway. So
yeah, it could do.
I think you need to get properly into the market in the Netherlands and call it Scotch Courage.
Yeah. Well, but don't forget, the world is. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of Scots around the world, or people that claim to have Scottish heritage.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things for us to latch on just with this one product and with what we're doing.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So
you've obviously travelled a lot abroad, then, and you've done a fair bit. Where would you say is your favorite?
I'm very lucky. I've travelled to most continents in the world.
Where would be your favourite destination? What places struck you the most?
Well, there is one continent that I haven't been to, which I really want to go to, and that's India.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, I've done the Far East, I've done Australia, I've done South America, I've done America. Well, in fact, I have family that live in America, and I've done most of Europe. So I don't really have an interest to go to Russia at the moment, but that maybe, who knows?
You got self-preservation thing there, maybe.
Well, maybe.
Russia's coming to us. That's all right. You'll have to go anyway.
No. India does interest me partly because one, it's a huge market, and there are vague rumours that somewhere down my historical line that I might have some Indian blood in me. So I don't know if that's what's pulling me, but. Who knows? But it's one of the places. It's one places I haven't been to, and I would like to go. In particular, I'd like to go to the northern states because my understanding of southern India is more of the, if you like, the bling city type thing and things. So I'd like to actually go and see India as it truly perhaps was, not hundreds of years ago, but as a thing, just to get an understanding of how those people live.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, there's all the old colonial links to India as well, of course, and I mean the gin and tonic link to there is really strong.
Yeah. But and potentially, I mean, it is one of the biggest malt whiskey markets in the world. Maybe not the best malt whiskey, but it is one of them. So there is potentially there's a potential business ahead of business opportunity.
The top three, I think the top three biggest selling whiskies are all Indian. I think Diageo own most of the companies. Johnny Walker's about fourth, but it's Indian whiskies that are the top three biggest sellers in the world. Yeah,
and I think the biggest difference is they use molasses rather than barley. So it wouldn't be classed as whiskey as we know it, but
correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Different countries, different rules. I know rum has different rules in every country, and I mean even gin, when it comes to strict rules, as long as there's juniper in the spirit, that tends to be the only kind of real
in the strength.
The 37.5%. The whole host of, I think when the boom of gin kind of really took off, we were getting flooded with artisan, small batch, premium. I'm not sure what else we've got kind of going out there, but there was no, like SWA, the Whiskey Association has that guidance where you're not allowed to say that. You can only say this. Gin never had And then by the time people realise, well, hold on a second, there's people throwing all kinds of things on their label. There's all these brands out. So I mean, you guys call yourself Signature Scottish Gin. Is that kind of related to like a classic juniper led?
No, it sort of it actually picked up on sort of the musical side of it, because people have signature guitars and things they're made for them, and it also enabled. We needed to put something there, and I didn't want to put single malt gin on the front label,
right?
Because the moment people see that, an element of the population would automatically be switched off.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, we do put that description on the back, so that's a good thing, because that people have then picked it up, and they're showing interest. So the thing was, what do you put in there? So we use, if you like, some of the musical, but people have signature shoes, people have signature, in a sense, it's a bespoke, a bespoke thing.
Yeah.
But it just gave us a tagline, and then I mean, one of our strap lines is about the Scottish notes, distinctly Scottish notes. Well, that is a play on the smell. That's a play on the smell, because you get notes in the aroma.
Yeah.
But you also get musical notes.
Sure.
So it covers both aspects.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've read the back of the label a few times, and I've never picked up on the notes, the links between the notes and the music. Always the nose and the flavour. But
that was why it was done. That was why it was done, because it covers both aspects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the main reasons we have these blethers is to get these kind of, apart from getting to know you, of course, Nigel, is getting to know a little bit of these kind of these backstories, because it's difficult. Again, if you're working with a company that's got a host of different products, that you can then get them to come in and kind of, show their wares, as it were, as a brand ambassador, then you get to know a bit more. But people who are producing maybe just one product, it's harder sometimes to get the backstory. But Mike and I sell this all the time, because these are the ones that we have on our gin tasting. So the more information we've got about it, the better. I mean, for everybody, and obviously for yourself as well. So it's great to have this extra bits of information.
I'm going to have to go and tell everyone.
I love the Gael. I was on a tasting with a group of girlfriends who they'd missed. I think they were all probably in their 30s, so they were a really fun bunch. And they'd missed everybody's birthday that year. They'd missed a couple of christenings. They'd missed a couple of engagements. So they'd missed all these events that they normally would have had all this time together. And there was about 8 of them. So they were so pleased to be on. But they did this gin tasting first. And of course, I came to the Gael and I spoke about the tune. So they were like, so sing it to us. I'm like, no. I mean, I'm on Zoom. No, I'm not going to sing it to you. No, you're going to have to sing it to us. So I had no more to do than to they were all kind of just dancing away and stuff. I mean, it was brilliant. It was fantastic.
It's amazing how many people actually say never heard of it, and then
until
when
you start singing it,
everybody's heard it.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Well, also having
you virtually can't avoid hearing it if you walk down Princes Street or Buchanan Street at least once in a day. So
I love the story, because I think everyone kind of, when they hear it, they think of that either the Royal Scottish Dragoons or the
film.
movie. But that little backstory to why it was written, and what that's.
Well, that as I said, that was important for my provenance, that it was actually written for something in Scotland.
Yes.
So and going down the line, it can be used in. We'll be up for how it can be included in promoting Scotland around because it is part of a more modern day story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Say good evening to Keith. He's just joined us. So
Keith?
A wee bit late. Yeah. It's we've got 10 minutes to go. What are you on about?
Get your gin poured, Keith. I hope you've got one there.
Yeah, let us know what you're drinking, Keith. If you've got a question for anyone who is watching, if you've got any questions, please fire them through to us. I'm just going to finish this wee comic too.
So, I mean, in terms of, you see, you started working at Safeway. Was that kind of somewhere you ended up, building shelves? Was that an accidental kind of place to go, or what was your kind of ambition when you were at school? What did you want to be when you were a wee boy?
I have no idea.
Really? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I was too lazy to go and to get enough qualifications to go to university, so I started in retail.
Yeah.
I had, and the fact that I was earning money, I had independence from my parents. Well, not totally, but back in those early days. But it just gave me, I was able to do things with my money and things, and I had no interest really in going to university. And I do think in today's world, it's a wrong thing to say that everybody has to go to university, because actually you can learn as much in the trades, depending whatever the trade, whether it's a plumber, shop, retail, even the hospitality trade, almost any industry. You can start without those qualifications, and you can still achieve.
I couldn't agree more. I'm very much of the opinion that you should start working and gain an apprenticeship or an understanding, and then go on to university education if you want to learn more about it. And that's
well, I mean, as I said, when I was at Sainsbury's as a junior buyer, I was lucky because they sent us on training school, training courses. They put us. We had the practical training in the field, so I in a sense, it was better than going to university.
Yeah,
because I was being paid to do it, so it was a bonus.
Getting to sample some nice drinks as well.
Yeah. I was lucky.
Yeah. It's like learning to drive a car, isn't it? You don't actually learn how to drive until you pass your test and you're on your own in the car.
Yeah, correct.
You're far more doing that than you do having somebody sitting next to you. And I think when we opened the shop, I think I wasn't 100% confident. You almost get that imposter syndrome where you're like, do I know enough to do this? And it's not until you start constantly speaking about things and learning new products. When you live in the industry, you learn so much more than sitting at home reading a book.
I think imposter syndrome's a reasonable thing. I mean, obviously, you don't too much of it is not good for you, but I think a bit of imposter syndrome is good for you because it keeps your feet on the ground.
Yeah. Was it Sturgeon came out and said, I wish that Boris had a bit of imposter syndrome.
Well, yeah, he's sadly lacking any kind of syndrome, I think.
We won't get into politics.
No, football and politics aren't allowed on chats. We always said that.
Good. I agree with that.
But yeah, no, a bit of imposter syndrome is actually good for you. It keeps your feet in the ground and makes you continue to learn, makes you continue to work hard to prove yourself. Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. So what have you got planned for kind of immediate future? Are you focused now fully on that expanded market, or is there anywhere in Scotland or England that you haven't quite grasped?
The next stage is that we will probably take on 2 sales guys, because it has got to the size where I can't follow up enough on the customer support side.
Yeah.
So I need people there, and that would give me more time to actually maybe look more at the exports. But I'm still have to plan all the productions, so I have to judge when we're going to need stock and things. So having got it to the stage where we are, it is now becoming a little unwieldy for one person to actually to do it all.
You probably have that. There's obviously
so the plans for this year is that, I mean, the difficulty I will have as a person is that sometimes you personally may not see me as often, but I need to have somebody who's showing their face more often. I could argue that I haven't actually shown my face with yourselves enough times to in a sense, it would have been easier. I mean, I'm very lucky that both of you have actually continued to support us, because I haven't necessarily been as in your face. Ideally, I'd like to have been passing at least every sort of couple of months or whatever. Sure. And it's probably only 3 times a year that you see me. But
maybe I have come through 2 years.
That's a little bit more than some others, though.
Is it? Oh well, okay. But
we know who you are.
Yeah, it's trying to make sure that you follow up, because otherwise there are dangers that, especially with new products coming out the whole time, that you go off the shelf and it's an easier opportunity for somebody to take that slot. So then you have to work twice as hard to get it back. So it's just, so that's the next 6 months. That will be our key thing.
Yeah.
And then where do we go from after that? I have ideas, but I need to take each stage at a time, make sure we've got it covered off before you start to do too many things. As I said, it's rather like doing flavors or doing other products. As far as I'm concerned, I need to focus to make sure that this continues to go the right way as it is at the moment.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's good. That's good. And let's say good problems to have when it's growing to a degree that you can't manage it all yourself.
Yeah, well, it's a bit like you, Michael, from when you started and how the shop's grown and how you've now got a bit more time to actually sit and think about what you do and where you how you continue to develop it.
Yeah, as long as I've got my hour on a Thursday night, I'm happy to sit down, have a dram with like-minded people and have a chat.
Good.
Yeah, it's good. I don't think the wife likes it so much, but
maybe not so popular at home, but yeah, for sure, it's definitely a highlight of the week. That's absolutely the Blether on the Thursday.
I think my wife's got used to the fact that's what I do, so. So I think she should do after 40 odd years.
We're only into year 3, so
yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
You don't want to be making that mistakes on the live on the social media, Mike. That's
I know we can't cut it, can we? Oh, well. I don't know if she watches anyway, but if she's out there watching.
Yeah, good.
But she should, because she works with us. So if she wants to
I know
learn
she does.
Then
absolutely. Yeah,
she should be watching. Yeah, so
good.
that's I've probably just dug myself in a hole there.
Well, you'll get out of it.
Yeah, I won't scare her if she doesn't watch it. I'll go down and tell her all about it myself.
Good.
I'm good for myself.
Yeah, I've poured another one as well. I'm really. I mean, I took a bottle of whiskey out to have as a kind of second or third dram, but it's just been left there. So yeah, I would quite happily just work my way through a bottle of this as a nip.
I think so. Yeah,
for sure.
It's almost got a new make kind of feel to it.
Yeah,
it's got that creaminess and that sort of food notes coming through. Tobias, cheers to have you along. Sorry, Tobias, come in with a highlight of the week. So I'm glad to see you join us every week.
Yeah, good. And well, and thank you, Michael. Thank you for this opportunity.
No problem at all. It is hard, as Russell mentioned, having so many products in the shop to know enough of every single one. We're lucky that we both enjoy the drink, so we want to learn about it, and it helps us. But it's so much better hearing it from yourself.
Thank you.
One of the beauties of the virtual world that has kind of exploded in the last couple of years is we get access not just to you, or we don't get access to you, but everyone can who follows us come in and hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on tonight.
It's a story that we both very much enjoy. The music we both very much enjoy as well. And that when you're selling a product, that's kind of what you want, that kind of story. We've had other people come into the store with a product, maybe even a local one, and you've kind of said, so you're not looking for people to be kind of completely wanky with kind of flavor notes and all that kind of stuff. You want a story. But we've had people come in and say, well, it's just gin, and you're like, okay, so what's your botanicals? Well, it's just gin. Okay, so what would you recommend as a serve then? Oh, just tonic and a bit of lemon. You're like, okay, I don't know how I'm supposed to sell it to somebody. Well, that's just gin. Tonic and lemon in it. That's not really something I'm really keen on selling, because I don't have a story to tell. And when you work in a whiskey shop, it's all about conversation. People come in, they can pick us product up off the supermarket if they want. Yeah. But they come into us to learn more about a product and have a story. and to be sold
and to
be
find
public
things that
sources.
aren't so much on the beaten track.
Yeah, and to have a story about it. So they go home and say, I've got a new tune today, and do you know what this tune is? To their friends or their family.
Exactly.
Yeah. I am a big believer that the story, the provenance, if you will, the look of the bottle, it only ever sells the first bottle to a customer.
Yes.
You need that, but as soon as they have it in hand, the most important is to back that story, that great branding.
Yeah.
However you want to put it, you need to back up with a great product.
No different to what you're doing with your products. I mean, you're doing a good job with your own things. So and you've got the reasoning, the story, the thing behind it. It's exactly the same as what we're doing.
Yeah. You could have the worst gin in the world with the best story, but soon word gets round. Yeah. But if at the same time, you could have the best gin in the world, but as the chap came in and says, "Look, it's just gin."
It's just gin.
How do you sell that?
We're not just gin.
No, absolutely not.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Is you've got that backup of a great product as well that will get people coming back and buying more. Yeah. And it is unique. It is and it's something that people will talk about. It's something people might not, if they forget the name, they will always remember the that malted gin or the barley gin. It's got that hook that people remember. And Hendrix did that very well way back when they said, "Oh, don't serve lime with our gin, serve cucumber." They pummeled that message to people so much. Even if you forgot the name of it, people asked. They came into their bar. So I ran a bar for 14 years in Inverurie.
Yeah,
and they asked for the cucumber gin or the gin that you have with cucumber. And you've got that hook that if people couldn't remember the Gael, or if you got so many licks, you could call it the last Mohican gin. Or you've got so many hooks that people will recognize and remember the name, or remember the gin that we can expand it.
I agree.
What we're talking about.
Yeah. No, in that sense, the thought processes that went behind it, although they were in a sense a bit ad hoc, they were the right ones because it was putting together those unique bits to it, and then pulling it together.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you? I'm not sure if you can remember. You mentioned I kind of lost signal a wee bit when you're talking.
It took us about from conception to actually having the gin about 9 months.
Okay.
So. Because I nearly pulled the plug. I nearly chickened out because there were still hundreds of gins appearing, and I just wanted to go back. And before it was just as we were about to print the labels, I wanted to go back through my thought processes yet again to make sure that we had those in particular, those two unique selling points, the one at the beginning and the one at the end, still made us very, very different to anything else that was out there. So,
Excellent. Yeah, and I think you've done well. And what we found during lockdown is that the guys who kind of launched just at the start of lockdown or just before are the ones that people actually wanted to know more about, and actually, we were lucky that we didn't have to close because we were classed as an essential.
Yes,
and people were looking for new things to try. They were sitting at home, they had a little bit of extra income because they were getting paid, but not work. So they're your furlough or whatever. So they weren't getting to the pubs, and they wanted to try different things. So we had things like this, and the other kind of one that came about at the same time was the Little Brown Dog guys who were.
I've met them at the shop.
At the shop, yeah. So he. So I'm just going to take Russell down. I don't know where he's gone. Hopefully he'll be back. So these are the products that people wanted to ask about because they couldn't go to the bar and buy a nip, or they didn't know where they could get it. So I think in a way that has helped a lot of you guys who were in that almost limbo position of we've just launched and now everyone's closing down.
Yeah,
getting out to the tasting events and getting things like this has been great.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
So well, I know that you are very busy. So I do.
Well, I am very busy, but actually, I have this like little thing that I need to keep checking in on what's happening with my mother. So that's the only reason.
No, so we will let you go. Again, thank you so much for joining us, giving up your time tonight to tell everyone. I'm sure they've all enjoyed it. Those
Hopefully they have.
The pack can have tried it. Oh, Russell's back. He's back to say.
I am. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, the nip out there. Yeah.
That's all right. So yeah, we're just wrapping up, Russell. Just saying thanks very much. So Ram's first Blether tonight. So hopefully it's not your last.
Fantastic.
But I'd like to thank both of you for allowing me this opportunity, and obviously I will hopefully see you in person in the not too distant future.
Nigel, not at all. Listen, it's always lovely to see you when you come in past, and you do. I wouldn't give yourself a hard time. You do visit us, and I think that's fantastic that you do. So,
yes.
It was nice that day you came in, and Andrew was there as well. It was almost like a meeting of the gins.
Yeah, it was. It was
a lovely day actually. So
yeah,
I wouldn't beat yourself up about that. We'll see you when we see you.
Yeah, but as I say, whenever you have questions or if people ask questions, fire them to me. It will normally take about 48 hours to get an answer. But if you do get questions or whatever, ask them. And I'll try endeavour. I couldn't answer one tonight, but I will now go and find the answer to that. But do that because you've supported us, so we will try and actually, I believe it should be a reciprocal thing. Yeah, we're all trying to do our own thing within it, but we can do it better if we all work together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks very much. So before we go, Russell, who's on next week? Who are we?
I was just grabbing my dad. I think it's Aaron Ross from Ben Nevis, and Roslyn Spirits, I believe. In fact, it is. Yeah. So Aaron Ross, whose father was heavily involved in the Ben Nevis distillery, and they've got the Roslyn Spirits as well now. So a couple of things. So yeah, all things Ben Nevis next week.
Excellent. Okay. We've got unique. If you've got the Blether pack, guys, we've got a pretty unique Ben Nevis in there.
The Ardence in there, isn't it? Yeah, the cast strength. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Which is going to be fun talking about that. I mean, Ben Nevis. So if you're up for a fight with a whiskey next week,
absolutely. I'm also yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're more than welcome.
do you drink whiskey as well, Nigel? Are you a whiskey man?
I wouldn't say a lot, but I've been known to have the odd dram.
Well, maybe we won't start you with the Ben Nevis, and we'll leave that one for another day.
Yeah. Well, right, guys. Anyway, guys, I'm going to love and leave you.
Yeah.
But thanks again for the opportunity, and I hope your audience was interested, and we'll catch up soon.
Take care, Nigel. Thank you.
Okay. Cheers. Bye.
Yeah. So cheers, guys. Thank you very much. Next week, Ben Nevis. So get your Blether packs ready.
Yeah.
And we'll be chatting all about that.
Get your sumo wrestling suit on or your mankini. Get greased up. Get ready for a rumble with the Ben Nevis.
Yeah, I mean Ben Nevis. It's quite often a whiskey that I don't go for quite often. But it takes all kinds of things. It's certainly got a cult following. It's certainly got a unique kind of flavour profile. So, next week it is. Thanks very much, guys. And again, if you have any questions that you're maybe just joining or you're going to be watching this later on, fire it in the chat and we'll do our best to get back to you at a later date. So. Okay. Cheers, Russell. I will see you on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll do. Cheers, everybody.
Take care. Cheers, Tobias. Yes, definitely see you in Campbellton in May. Thanks very much.
For sure.